talking about here. And so can you run with that? What's a technical skill that you love to teach?
You know what I love? I love getting singers completely on their body.
Yes.
Singing with their whole instrument and their whole person.
Yeah.
I've experienced many singers who are in vocal knots and therefore emotional knots because in the past they have not addressed the entire instrument. Okay. And look, talking about technique can be like a very, very sensitive thing. And, so I'm speaking from my personal experience, from my mentors. They were very different personalities. They used very different vocabulary, but conceptually they believed in all of the same things. And what saved my instrument, what allowed me to go from the ugly duckling at the Curtis Institute of Music to being too old for the business and then having, 3 or 4 seasons at Deutsche Oper and still getting invited now to sing without having to audition. Yeah. I am telling you that is technique. I never had whatever people believe in for like the political machine. I never knew the right people. I was too old. It literally sheerly happened off of this.
Yeah.
So what I love is getting in and getting people on the true appoggio, really feeling what the old-timey Italian grandmas and grandpas would call voce la inhalare, really feeling where chiaroscuro is. So we have squillo and we have this pharyngeal depth. It's amazing. It's amazing the look on somebody's face when all of a sudden it doesn't hurt to sing.
Oh, yes.
Not hard to sing. They get what I call voice dysmorphia because now everything sounds and feels about a third lower. It's usually a major third to a perfect fourth lower than what it used to feel like. And they tell me they feel like they can sing anything. And when they listen to the recording of their lesson, because you can't hear what you sound like in your ear, they say to me, it's the voice that I always thought that I could have, but I didn't know I could make.
Oh, that's my favorite. That's
my favorite. And then you see the wheels turning and like the glitter in the eyes, because they know that's the beginning of ownership, because then they know what they carry. They're not going to apologize for it.
Yeah.
And they're going to go in, I like to say, again, it's very woo-woo, open heart, open throat.
Yeah,
open heart,
I love it. That's amazing.
You can't be apologizing and emotionally in panic and sing with your whole instrument. Yeah. And by whole instrument, I would never allow a student to sing a fa heavier than they should be. I would never allow someone to darken or manufacture sound. I'm talking about, to me, the culmination of vocal technique is massaging out the most beautiful, unique color that only belongs to that one person, that has as many colors as possible, as much ring as possible, with the least amount of effort.
Yes. Yes.
That's when you're kind of in the magic zone. So that's my favorite thing to do, because I get a lot of singers that are very disembodied, or they come to me only having worked like one part of the instrument. Usually, there's like only talking about squillo, or only talking about the schwa, or only talking about, I'm like, no. Yeah. We're gonna introduce you to the other parts of your body, and then once that starts lining up, that's when the machinery starts going. Right. That's very exciting to me.
When your technique helps you feel like it's so easy, it should feel like, and you're like, this is my sound.
Yes.
It feels effortless, and so when we get to that point, it's so fascinating to me that we think should be so hard. Yeah. And then when we get to the point where we're like, oh, this is my voice, is that it's actually the most effortless version of what you've been doing all along. You're like, oh, okay.
Yes. Absolutely. And it takes a kind of, I get a lot of, it's interesting. I get a lot of, this is way more intense than I thought it was going to be, but it feels too easy.
Yeah.
Because they're taking their energy, they're basically putting their support where they should be, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But also this sense of like not having to work too hard. I can't tell you how many sopranos have come to me that are panicking about their high notes not matching, and they're just muscling they think that it just takes so much work, and I'm like, no.
Yep.
No. A lot of people won't believe me. They'll be like, that was wimpy, and then I'll have to make them listen, I'm like, you have to record your lessons, otherwise you won't believe me, sort of thing.
And I think so many people like hate listening to themselves. Get into the practice, record yourself, listen back to it, and then you'll like, it just unlocks so many things, because you cannot, if you were in it the way that your voice wants to be, you can't be relying on that inner ear.
You cannot hear it. I mean, and it's funny because I use myself as a guinea pig example, because for people that love my singing or know my voice, they know that I'm like basically sound like a contralto with high notes. It's anybody who's like, I haven't heard a voice like yours since this 1956 Italian soprano. That's me. I literally, I'm not an animal that exists in today's world. So I have the biggest, darkest sound. And I always tell everybody the story about how, my current teaching mentor is David Jones. I believe in many, many of his concepts, and his concepts worked for me. And my high notes finally got unlocked when he said to me, you're like a bull in a china shop and you're locking through everything, but you're strong. And so you're muscling. When the high notes started releasing past A natural, I almost cried. I was like, this is so ugly. It's so wimpy. I looked at him and I said, that's wimpy. It's never going to carry. And he started laughing hysterically. He's like, madam, your voice is like a siren. And I didn't believe him. I'm like, I can't believe I spent all that money and he totally doesn't understand my instrument. What have I done? And then I went home and I made myself listen. Again, comes back to a place of self-love. You cannot be berating yourself while you're working.
No.
You cannot do it. So I'm like, I'm not going to judge. And it was like, wow, the biggest, darkest, most brilliant, tons of overtone. And I thought, oh, that's what people mean when they say you can't hear yourself.
Exactly.
And I had to, for the first time, go by feeling. It's very scary. And it means, again, with self-love, it means being vulnerable. It means taking chances. It means giving yourself permission in the privacy of the studio to like not feel comfortable and fall flat on your face and do it again. It means having a vocal breakthrough, and then for the next 2 weeks when you try repeating it on your own, you're not going to get it.
No.
It doesn't mean that your teacher is leading you astray. It means that you have to, again, with self-love, hold yourself in compassion, be patient. The brain can get it, but you're talking about building a muscle coordination. That takes time.
Exactly. Well, and I love what you're saying about also being with someone you trust when you're practicing that time. I feel the same way about the mentor that I was working with at the time, when those things started to come into place, and I was like, it can be like this. Like, what? And same thing. I don't think, I mean, I definitely wouldn't have done it without that person to say, this is a place where you can try it. Just try all the sounds. Here you go. Here we go. I'm here for you. I'm listening. You can try these things. You don't have to be the observer and the sound maker and all of the things all at once.
Yes, exactly.
So I feel you 100%.
Yeah, out of all of the places in the world, the studio, in the privacy of your relationship with your teacher is the one place where you should feel 100% safe. And I also feel that like more important than like someone's specific pedagogy is what kind of human being they are as a teacher. It's, I mean, again, keeping it real. I know who's watching. I know that you're deciding whether you're going to actually pay the electric bill on time or you're going to take a lesson this month.
Yeah.
I know exactly. I lived that. I know what that is. I still sometimes have to make that decision. I've got an Anna Bolena coming up and I'm like, okay, you know, how many lessons can I afford? Like when I want to do this and I wanted to, you know, maybe buy a car this year after I got I just like, I get it. Like that never goes away.
Never goes away.
If you're making the time, financial, and emotional commitment, the agreement, the ethical agreement that you go into with your teacher is this person emotionally available? Are they curious? When I ask a question, do they get defensive or do they actually give me an answer? Are they curious about my vocabulary and how I understand my instrument? Mm-hmm. Do they have one or two concepts that I hear them using over and over and over, no matter who the student is? Or do I feel like they're specifically paying attention to what my instrument needs?
Yes.
And when I watch them work with
big one.
When I watch them work with other students, does it sound like almost like a different vocabulary?
Yeah.
And if I feel that I'm not getting anywhere within 3 to 4 months of taking lessons, or 6 months at the very tops, do they treat me like I'm not talented or that there's something wrong with me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's all of that is just so real. And that's the thing, is that we bump into it. I definitely had that experience very early in my career, going from a great studio environment, and I thought they were all like that.
They're not all
and
like
then
that.
They're not. And then had that experience going into one and realized, you know, all of the things on that, let's just call that a checklist, that all of those things, I was just like, but why is this happening? Aren't they supposed to be like this experience I was having? And
that can be very alarming.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't have the capacity to know those things. And then the getting out of the wrong situation and into the right situation was met with a lot of angst from a lot of people, when it should have been met with like, let me help you do that. This doesn't seem like the right situation, you know. And so for anybody who's listening, I always want to be that person that's like, it's okay if you're not in the right situation, be professional and say, I'm going to move out of this as smoothly and efficiently as possible, you know, getting into the right place.
That gets back to the danger of the people pleasing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All of those, like being addicted to believing that only an achievement is going to make you happy or give you what you think you want, is attached to people pleasing, is attached to your sense of self-ownership. If you love yourself, if you know what you're worth, if you know what you want for achievements, but you know that the achievements don't define you as a lovable or worthy human being, you will be brave enough to say to that person that you're paying $175 to $250 an hour for a lesson, after you've done everything that they've asked you to do and nothing has stuck, or singing feels worse 4 months, 5 months later than it did before. You will have the spine and the self-worth to say, it's been such an honor to work with you, but I feel like I can't hold on to anything. I think I have to try something different, because only you can take care of yourself. Even young, I'm a relatively young teacher in my career. I believe in the ethical studio. I've had more than one student that I feel I've given everything that I know how. I had a young baritone actually just last year. He really, really wants to audition for master's programs. He's very, very driven. And no matter what I was doing with him, it could have been personality issues. It could have been he didn't understand my language. It could have been he was in a place where he wasn't ready or able to hear it and do the practicing. Who knows? In the end, we got to about 6 months of really, really serious work. And I thought, if I continue to teach this child, I'm stealing his money.
Yes. Yes.
And I said to him, listen, I really believe in you. You know how talented I think you are. I think I've tried everything that I can, and I'm concerned because we're 6 months in and I feel like we're starting to have to like reinvent the wheel. I know how badly you want to audition for master's programs. I want to give you enough time to find somebody that's going to know exactly what to do. And then I sent him a list of my colleagues that are not going to break the bank, who I believe are other up and coming world-class teachers. And I'm like, I'll talk to this person, this person, this person. It's no reflection on me as a teacher.
Oh,
It just means that I wasn't able to serve this child.
yeah. It's both on both sides.
On
For
both
him
ends.
and for you, you're saying, I'm making space to be the right person for the right student. I'm also making space, and he's making space
Yes,
to be with someone who is the right fit for him at this moment in time. And
absolutely.
I so strongly believe in that. And and that's why when I was saying about when it's maybe not the right fit, what you were saying is, it's been an honor to work with you. Thank you for what you've given me.
That's
And
right.
it's time for me to try a different environment. Something along those lines can
Absolutely.
allow everybody to just go to the next thing. That's it.
That's right. Because you are on your own journey.
Yeah.
You were on your own journey. I remember when I was a babe, I did a couple of seasons of, IVAI with Joan Dorneman, and I will never forget her saying, and it's true because she was talking about coaching. She was like, it's kind of like dating.
Yeah.
If you cannot, it will be such a huge time waster, and you're just gonna devolve into knots. If you work with a coach who's not a fan of your instrument and what makes you you, you will never get what you need out of them. You're going to spend hundreds of dollars a week and months of hard work with them never being happy with anything that you're doing because they don't understand you.
Yeah.
You need to be with somebody that's part of your tribe in a way, part of your vocal tribe.
Totally.
And they will not let you get away with anything. They'll hold you to a world-class standard, but you'll know if they understand your instrument, if they're excited about you, and they can give you the tools that you need to come out on the next level. You'll know. Anybody watching, I know everybody is a smart cookie that's watching this. You'll know.
You'll know.
So it's like trying to hold on to the guy that was only going to see you as a last minute option instead of like wife material. I mean, keeping it real, right?
Yes, indeed.
Never somebody who can't accept and understand what makes you you, you're never going to convince them.
No. Well, and it's such emotional, it's all the things. It's physical, it's emotional, it's psychological work that we do together. And you can't downplay that in a relationship, because you're gonna be vulnerable together. It's really important. It's not the same thing as, like, I don't know, my financial advisor. I don't need them to understand me psychologically necessarily the same way. Like
exactly. But we're talking about vulnerability. We're talking about, we're opening up in front of someone else all of our insecurities and our fears of unworthiness or not being enoughness about our own instruments.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm working with students some singers that have been berating themselves for years. As driven as they are and as talented as they are, they're like one step away from sabotaging with how they talk to themselves. That's a huge responsibility for me to say, well, with all of that, let me ask you to put your vocal cords in my hands, and I'm gonna take all the parts out under the hood and then put it back together. That is an unbelievable amount of trust.
It truly is.
So the student the teacher has a responsibility to the student. That's ethical studio teaching, definitely.
Agreed. I love what you said there. And I hope that so many of us also, so many of us are in the ecosystem where we are artists, we are like teaching artists, we do all parts, like we were talking about wearing all of these hats.
Yes.
And so much of that, no matter what hat you're wearing, being an ethical member of this field, of this sector, is so important. If you're an artist and you're also on the administrative side, making sure that we are financially taking care of each other, also
Yes.
making sure that if you're in a studio, that you are emotionally taking care of each other, and you're not continuing a pedagogical abuse cycle.
Absolutely.
I hope that that's the conversation that we can keep having, is making that ethical commitment to each other, because we're interconnected.
Absolutely. I'm very excited in that conversation in particular, because like I said, I really think that with the industry and the machine, the bigger machine changing so much, now's the time.
Now's the
You know
time.
what I mean? To
Yeah.
really, really, you know what I mean? Like drive the point home. We are in a place, I am at the age where I get to create the atmosphere that I wish that I could have had when I was about 20 to 25 years younger. And that's my responsibility.
Yes.
But it's very, very empowering, you know? It allows for the care and the feeding and the nurturing of the next special, unique artists to come.
Yep. Agreed.
So why is there's no shame in talking about it. It's important to be having this conversation. It's happening in every other artistic field. These conversations are happening in every other artistic field. Yep. I know that I'm not politically very high on the totem pole, but I've lasted longer than most people. And I don't think that this idea of, what's the word I'm looking for? Mistaking being cynical, negative, or secretive must mean that you're a more talented artist than somebody else.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in it. And all of the artists that I really look up to are very, very generous and very, very real. I mean, Christine Gerke probably is about as real on Facebook as like you can get, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, right. And we love her for it, right?
And we love her for it. And she makes that she gives permission for the singers that are working on like the regional and the smaller regional level, you know what I mean?
Yes.
To be that. I think it's important because we need to keep the community intact. It's this art form is so visceral and it's so extreme, and it's not meant for the whole entire populace. It's never going to be understood by the whole entire populace, but there will always be a certain percentage of every generation that feels like their life has changed by hearing operatically trained singers in person, and they will forever be a zealot and a passionate acolyte.
Yeah.
So how can you ask to win the hearts and minds of the up and coming audience members and be closed? I don't personally prescribe to that. It hasn't worked for me personally as a singer, as a teacher, you know what I mean, as a person. But that's just me. That's what makes me me. That's what makes me different than everybody else.
Well, and I think it comes back to one of the things that we were talking about, which, we're always going to be a little bit more tight-fisted or unethical or whatever when it comes to fear, uncertainty, scarcity mindset. Yes. And those are tactics to make you feel like you don't have the power you do have.
Absolutely. I think that I was just talking about this with a colleague of mine yesterday. And again, this is a life skill tool in all walks of life. For anybody watching that's feeling stuck, or they feel like they're spinning wheels, or they feel frozen by indecision. It's such an emotionally fraught thing, right? Our relationship to our instrument and wanting achievements and what we think that means. So when you're in a highly emotionally reactive place, this is what you do. You sit yourself down, you make a list of, okay, what is not within my control? What do I not have control over? So I don't have control over who's going to be sitting behind the table at that audition. I don't have control over the fact that, I didn't get into that master's program. I don't have control over the fact that that coach that I just gave $120 to obviously didn't get my instrument at all and basically told me I was never going to have a career. It's too late. And it's not within my control. I already feel bad about it. Like I already have my feelings. Okay. Then you sit down and you write, what do I do have control over, right? 10 times out of 10, anytime that I've used this for my students, my clients, the what is within my control and therefore what I can maybe do and how I can move forward is always way, way longer than they think it's going to be.
Yeah.
Way, way longer. And again, it comes back to how creative energy is non-linear. It's like, I used to say, it's like water. It will level out. It will find its way around rocks. It will find its way around seemingly insurmountable obstacles if you just let it go in the direction that it wants to go.
Yep.
Stop micromanaging. Let your creative energy and how you go forward be its own organic thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if anybody actually sat down and saw the direction of my career, they'd probably get whiplash. I mean, you know what I mean? I could not have predicted who was going to understand my voice and who was going to get excited about it. There were people that I was sure were going to get it and hire me on the spot, and they could have cared less. You know, just in the past year, this and this and this creative opportunity has literally landed on my lap from this person that heard me sing 4 years ago. I mean, you never know what's coming.
You never know.
So in a place of feeling frozen or stuck, to get yourself out of the emotional loading of despair, write your lists. And then out of the list of the stuff that's within your control, you say, all right, at the end of the day, how is it that I want to feel? Do I want to feel accomplished? Do I want to feel hopeful? Do I want to feel like I've got some room to move forward? All right, what in this list is going to get me where I want to go?
Yeah.
And I use that for my own career, through many stages of it. And I'm a hybrid career. Anybody who's pretending that they don't have a hybrid career is not being honest with themselves or anybody else, as we discussed earlier.
Yeah, totally true.
But it's also for any part in your life. And I mean, I have colleagues that had much bigger, shinier, careers in the industry than I did. But what makes them happy now is not what they thought was going to make them happy 5 or even 3 or 10 years ago. Yeah. So they're coming back to doing those lists for whether they even want to be singing or not. I mean, there's just no predicting in life, but there will always be a way forward for you. If you're honoring how you feel, you will not lose out. It will only in the end work. It's going to work out the way it's supposed to work out.
I love it. Francesca, we on the podcast, I usually ask a question. We just organically went through this, which was I ask a question about micro actions because it's one of the things that I just try to help break things down so it doesn't feel so overwhelming all the time.
Absolutely.
And so a micro action is like, what's a thing that I can do right now that feels like I'm moving forward?
Absolutely.
And I loved your lists of
make a list.
These aren't in my control. These are in my control. What do I want to feel? And then make that next step. And I think that works for uncertainty, as you said, uncertainty, fear, stuckness, frozen.
Absolutely. It also works for goal and achievement setting. So let's say you really set out for some achievement and you were like, let's say that it's, all right, I know COVID just happened, but I need at least 15 auditions this year, let's just say. And you get to the end of the season and you're like, I was granted 7 auditions and none of them planted. Like I didn't get any offers and I didn't get as many auditions as I wanted. Does that mean that you're a failure? You're never going to sing? No. It means that you've got to pivot and redo your list. To find out the next right thing to do. It literally doesn't mean anything. And that's a whole other conversation too, because you're not getting the job very often had nothing to do with your talent. It was made for reasons that were completely out of your control.
Yes. Right. And practicing not letting it mean things is its own micro action.
That is its own micro action. Like this is a very specific example from my own career. I was up for a Mrs. McBee in the Scottish play. And I knew that the people that were auditioning me were some huge fans of my singing. And, you know, the energy around the audition was like, I'm a shoo-in, I'm a shoo-in. I didn't get it. I was shocked.
Yeah.
And then I ended up finding out that out of the 3 people in the room, 2 of them were like, we have to hire her. The third person was like, yeah, she's amazing and she gave the best audition, but this other person I can hire with their husband and they'll be cheaper together. It literally had nothing to do with my performance that day.
Right.
So also young people or not so young people watching, like, again, the most important thing is how you felt about your audition, and maybe your manager, if they were there, only if they're a manager that you actually respect and trust. That's another conversation. But in the end, you can't even look outside. You have to know in your gut, well, do I feel like I rocked it? I did. Then I cannot take it personally. I cannot read into why I didn't land the contract, and I have to keep going. Now I make my list. How do I move forward?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You just brought this up. I've had a lot of people asking recently about managers, and I just wanted to bring it up because you had talked about it for a second. Do you have any thoughts about management that you want to share here?
I think, again, in the theme of our like people pleasing versus ownership, managers are only as good as the relationships that they already have. Being signed with a manager does not guarantee achievement. The right time for being with a manager is when you meet someone that's heard you sing, that gets so excited about your singing and so gets who you are, that they believe that they could sell you to like their pet rock.
Oh yeah.
Anything less than unbridled, passionate enthusiasm is not somebody that's going to go to bat for you.
Yeah.
Because the manager is also managing their reputation with the opera companies and the casting directors. They've got to really understand you and get you. They are taking 20% or 15% or 10% out of your paycheck. I know it's hard to remember, but you are paying them. You are paying them. They are working for you.
Yeah.
They're working for you. You are responsible for executing and nailing the landing and doing what they ask you to do and taking the risks that they ask you to take and taking their business advice. But it is an equal business partnership. It is not tiered. It is not guru and disciple. That's not what it is. And managers cannot make miracles happen if the work is drying up, or if this casting director says that they want a 22-year-old lyric to sing Turandot and you're the most amazing Turandot, your manager is not going to get you hired.
No.
So it's just another level. The right time to sign with a manager is someone who's excited about you and believes in you, and they have the professional connections to get you in front of the opera companies that you can't get in front of by yourself. But you are always and forever responsible for tooting your own horn. Don't wait for the manager to, you still have to do it. You have to be the CEO of your own company, and you have to make your manager work for you. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I made. I idolized my managers, every single one of them, and I feared them. And because I felt that I wasn't worthy. I didn't really feel worthy of my own talent until maybe about 45 in the last 3-4 years. Because I still believe deep down inside that my voice was ugly and that I wasn't enough. Like what we were talking about. So my professional relationships were not healthy ones.
But it's so real. you are not alone in those experiences.
I'm not alone. And again, these are the conversations that, there's this for all of the young chickadees going, if I just get a manager. There's this spin on social media and managers and this and that. And then there's like how people talk about their managers.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
It's so true.
So that the most important thing is that this combination of somebody really, really getting what they're not, if you feel before you sign with somebody that the energy is that they're doing you a favor by deigning to take you on to their roster, not gonna work.
Not gonna work. And honestly, when it comes down to it, the voice gets the job.
The voice gets the job.
You have a business partner who you are working together on those things.
Yes.
But don't forget, because I think what I hear is that managers are, or I think the subtext of those questions are, managers are these magical moments in your life in which suddenly you don't have to work for gigs anymore. And I'm like, that is not how that works.
No, your work is never done.
Exactly.
You're only adding more work onto your plate when you sign with someone.
Right. And so you really want to make sure that you feel like you're entering into a positive business relationship.
Absolutely. It is an equal business partnership is what I made all the mistakes that you're not supposed to do. I never talked to my managers. I never asked them questions. I never made demands.
Yeah.
If I felt that my manager wasn't happy with my singing, even though I sound exactly the same as when they first signed me, I would emotionally unravel, like completely emotionally unravel. Right. And then it became about like winning their affection instead of saying, but I landed this and this and this contract. What's the problem that you have with my singing right now? Right. What do you expect me to do about it?
Right.
Be tougher.
Yeah.
They're not your dad. They're not your mom. They're not your best friend. They're not your guru. They're not your ego. They're not your mirror. They are your business partner and they're working for you.
Yep.
Says the 48-year-old woman who doesn't have a manager anymore. But I've been through a few and they're all still working. All of the managers that I had are still working.
Yeah. Well, so that's the point, is having had those experiences and then being able to talk about them in a way where they're not magical, mythical things anymore. No. They are, these are the things I did. I learned a lot from that. And here's what I would be looking for, obviously, going forward. And then and being able to, that's exactly what this is about, is just the real conversations around how to get the most out of that relationship.
Absolutely.
Yep.
If you're giving 150% of what's in your control, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have a right. You have a right to be treated with respect by somebody who's taking money from you.
That's what I was having this conversation recently about that financial relationship, and saying, I was like, that manager should be very excited because you are their ticket.
That's right.
I was like, this is not it's not the other way around, friend.
No,
and also
exactly.
they're looking for you. The relationship isn't like, I'm going to go from not having a lot of experience into suddenly being signed by a manager, and then they're going to do all the work for me on that side. That's not the way it works. It's
you're still doing all of your own work.
Exactly.
You're still doing all of your own work.
And the fact that most of that is that you are actually, your schedule is getting more and more full based off of the work that you're doing. That's when a manager is going to show up and be like, hi, I would like to also profit off of this work.
Yeah, absolutely.
in a positive way, but
in a positive way. Absolutely. That it is, they will help you negotiate the next level of your career, if that's what's meant to be. And they're going to know how to represent you. They're going to know how to put the right words in the right ear of the right casting directors that they have good relationships with, that they know this house is going to really get your instrument. Mm-hmm. And they're well respected and they're well connected, and they're connected to a lot of different companies.
Yes.
You can be with the nicest person in the world, but if as a manager they're not well respected, and then nobody on their roster is like, you know what I mean?
Yep. Exactly.
And don't underestimate how much you can do for yourself. I mean, that's the other thing too. That's a whole other conversation about how the industry really, really is in flux. Like there's no real audition season anymore in Europe. Like there's none of that. It's just, you just kind of hang out and sing. Like you just have to show up and sing. You know, I have colleagues of mine that are writing, they have an agent, but that doesn't stop them from writing directly to opera companies to get a foot in the door. You have to be your own manager. You never stop.
And especially early on, you are building all of those relationships. You are getting out there and working in all different types of situations so that you've got lots to show for yourself, you know, all of the things you've been through. You
have to go where all of the green lights are, because for younger singers watching, you're building a network of relationships that will bring dividends years and years and years down the line.
Yes.
Networking is not about what are you going to do for me? It's what can I do for you? You have to emotionally and musically, creatively invest. And keep showing up and say yes to this and this and this and this gig, because that person that was a big fan of your singing 3 years ago, 10 years from now is going to be the musical director at an opera company, and they're going to call you and say, can you come and sing ba ba ba, because they love your voice and they love who you are as an artist and a colleague. That's how it really happens.
I couldn't agree more. And honestly, I think people think it's that it doesn't happen fast enough, and you're like, it's a building process. Yeah.
It takes a whole lifetime. It takes a whole lifetime. And the other thing to note is where is the manager in that relationship? The manager is nowhere. The manager has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
So the manager is only opening doors that you couldn't already open for yourself. But that work, that's your life's work. That's your investing into your artistic community.
Exactly.
With your beautiful, unique, bright, shiny, gorgeous, not apologizing, showing up, here I am.
That's right. So Francesca, we're going to do one more question before we start to kind of find ourselves at the culmination of our masterclass time together.
Yay!
And I always love to end with this, because I think that curiosity is a superpower, and I think that you do too. That curiosity is so important to the artistic soul, and so what I want to ask is kind of, what are you curious about these days?
What am I curious about these days? I'm curious about, I think because I'm so in love with teaching, and I come to my teaching from a place of really wanting to be a healer and a catalyst. I'm curious about what makes my students, what makes people happy. I'm interested in what makes people feel beautiful on the inside for them.
Yes.
You know, I want to know what can I do to make you feel special and happy and excited, and like a little rose bush that I'm pruning and watering. And, you know, I'm really, really interested in the inner worlds of other people.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the uniqueness of other people. I'm in love with people, but that's why we do what we do, right? We're communicators. And we're communicators and we're connectors. And I'm fascinated by people's stories and their own personal journeys and their hurdles, especially when it comes to their relationship to their voice and what they've been through in their trials and tribulations. And I feel like it makes me a better human being, but it makes me a much better teacher. And when I think about like returning to singing, I know it's going to make me a better singer than I've ever been.
Mm.
For being open enough to, I mean, obviously I'm like the Jewish Italian chatty Cathy over here, but there's great, great, great power in listening to other people.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that's
From
such an
here.
important skill. I think when we think about it as musicians, we're taught to listen in very different ways than other humans. And yes, we're taught how to be sound makers, but we're also taught how to be listeners.
Yes, and for other performers watching, what that is when you're on stage. Mm-hmm. Before your pianist or the orchestra makes a sound, before you open your mouth, what are you doing? Yeah. You're feeling and listening for your audience, and you can feel and hear with no words what it is that they need from you.
Yes, yes. And that is one of the things I am just so deeply craving about as we return to live performance. Oh, Lord.
I know. And I know that your people miss you. Oh my goodness.
And likewise.
I know. It's going to be like, if I can get through my first performance without crying big, fat, snotty tears, it's going to be a miracle. But,
it's, oh man. Oh, yeah. It's just, I'm just so excited for, and I suppose it's been a very weird and hard year for a lot of us. And I'm hoping that at least for myself, I'll bring the meaning and hopefully some of that into, the rest of our lives as artists. And
absolutely. So, oh, I know you will, Miss Megan.
I know you will, Miss Francesca.
I know. That's why we're such fans, because we're part of the same tribe, ladies.
Yes.
We are. I'm so excited. You have to keep me you have to keep me posted when your performances come up so I can come and see you.
Oh, of course. Right. Likewise. We'll we'll make it happen. So
we'll make it happen.
Of telling people where. So I am imagining that people can find you both as a teacher and as a singer online. Can you tell people where you want them to go for that?
Yes. So for teaching, you can go to www.studiomondanaro.com. Right now, the artistic page is going, because I'm changing and transforming as an artist. Yeah. The website is down and we're redoing. But the best place always to get me is right on Facebook, Francesca Rachel Mondanaro. Hit me up, DM me. That's where I'm listing all the performances as they come up. I'm trying to do a live FB chat like once every couple of weeks.
Love it.
And sort of keep everybody in the process and talk about teaching, answer any questions that people have. The performances, my first performance dates really won't be until the spring of 2022. Yeah. But I will be relaunching the art person website by this coming fall. So come find me on Facebook, Francesca Rachel Mondanaro, and then studiomondanaro.com for lessons. That's my story.
And then do you want to spell, you want to spell Mondanaro for any of our
it's a lot of vowels. All right, it's M-O, it's studio, the word studio, and then M-O-N-D like David, ANARO.com.
Love it.
Lots of vowels.
Francesca, I'm going to have you say our closing line, because you were talking about what makes people kind of feel beautiful on the inside.
Yes.
And through this podcast, I always tell our listeners at the end to stay sparkly inside and out. And so I'm hoping that you'll close it off for us with our little stay sparkly inside and out tagline.
Everybody stay sparkly inside and out. I'm going to be looking for you. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Love to everybody. Love you, Megan. It's so good to see you.
Love you too. Thank you so much, Francesca.
Bye.